So we went from Russian jets encroaching into Alaska airspace, which barely got any attention from our corporate media yesterday, but should raise a 3-alarm fire, to now Russia's foreign minister is saying that Moscow is in a real war with NATO and Europe. Sergei Lavrov, you know, that guy who was in Alaska wearing the USSR shirt, who Donald Trump rolled out the red carpet for and had our military literally get down on their knees for him and Vladimir Putin as they laughed in the face of the United States of America. Remember that? Well, he's saying there's a real war taking place with NATO right now. I can go back to, could you imagine if former President Biden was in office and Russia said there's a real war against NATO, what type of attention that would get when the MAGA Republicans were talking about weather balloons like every other week under former President Biden. But let me just show you what Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said. He said that NATO has basically declared war on Russia and that we're basically in a real war right now. Here, let me show you this clip. Let's play it.
Is the Ukraine crisis, which was provoked by the collective West. And we also, of course, know the history of colonialism in Africa, where borders were drawn up arbitrarily without any concern for nationality confession. And back to Ukraine, NATO and the EU have basically declared war on my country and are partaking it directly.
So what's Donald Trump's response to that, right? Pretty big deal right there. Donald Trump's response is, bathroom vanities are now a national security threat. So the United States of America will be imposing a 50% tariff on all kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and associated products starting October 1st. Additionally, we will be charging a 30% tariff on upholstered furniture. The reason for this is the large-scale flooding of these products into the United States by other outside countries. It is a very unfair practice, but we must protect, for national security and other reasons, our manufacturing process. So that's what Donald Trump posted yesterday. Yeah, right as Donald Trump also was bragging about getting his political enemy or opponent, former FBI director James Comey, indicted, Donald Trump was posting stuff like this. He also wrote, in order to protect our great heavy truck manufacturers from unfair outside competition, I'll be imposing, as of October 1st, 2025, a 25% tariff on all heavy, then he puts in parentheses, big trucks made in other parts of the world. Therefore, our great large truck company manufacturers, he says, and others will be protected from the onslaught of outside interruptions. And then Donald Trump says, this is a national security risk. As Alejandro Caballo says, it's absolutely effing insane that Trump can just arbitrarily raise prices of whatever he wants. This is untenable. Also, it is why, too, that companies are not building factories in the United States, because it's the kind of sounds counterintuitive, but countries and companies, they're like, why would we invest in the US? We just don't know what this maniac is going to do at any given point of time. And also, it just shows you again the failure of our court systems, that even though several months ago, when was it? Like late May or June, when a federal court finally found that Donald Trump's tariffs against the world from April were unlawful, but then it was stayed and paused. And now Supreme Court oral arguments are going to take place a few weeks from now, and then it won't be resolved, until December. So Donald Trump's been able to do this every step of the way. It just shows you the utter failure of our Supreme Court and our court system that does not know how to meet the moment, right? This right-wing extremist Supreme Court that gave Donald Trump absolute immunity back in 2024. Just contrast that to the Brazil Supreme Court, which immediately and swiftly found their insurrectionist former President Jair Bolsonaro guilty of the insurrection and sentenced him to over 25 years, to which Donald Trump then sanctioned the Brazilian Supreme Court and the wife of the main Supreme Court judge there in Brazil, giving a Magnitsky Act sanctions because America sides with insurrectionists and losers around the world. Like, Donald Trump in America in bailing out Argentina. Remember when Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and all of MAGA was saying Jair, not just Jair Bolsonaro, Javier Milei, the leader of Argentina. He's so smart, this libertarian leader. He's going to dismantle the deep state in Argentina, and watch him. He's got a chainsaw. Remember Milei pulled out that Elon Musk style chainsaw and then did what Trump did here, destroy all of the government departments. Like, see, it's working. Nope. Argentina is about to go bankrupt, and America, your taxpayer dollars are going to bail out Argentina. Also, your taxpayer dollars are now going towards welfare for farmers. Farmers need to be bailed out, and they would like to not have the welfare. They'd like to be able to sell their produce across the world, but China ain't buying those soybeans. Donald Trump's given up all of our leverage to negotiate a TikTok subsidiary deal for his right-wing oligarch friends here in the United States instead of actually helping our farmers. And by the way, while we bail out Argentina, Argentina undercuts us and in the soybean market as well while we're bailing them out, further screwing over our farmers. But that's just the Trump way, right? I mean, it's going to bail out the farmers, bail out Argentina, and then pretend everything's just going swimmingly well. And then Donald Trump also announces starting October 1st, we will be imposing a 100% tariff on any branded or patented pharmaceutical product unless a company is building their pharmaceutical manufacturing plant in America. Is building will be defined as breaking ground and or under construction. And Trump says this is a national security threat as well. So again, your health care is about to get significantly higher. If you have health care at all, Democrats are fighting right now to try to preserve the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which are set to expire. And they said, look, we'll fund the government, just keep people's health care. The Trump regime's like, nah, we're not going to keep people's health care. We're just going to blame a shutdown on transgender people. We're going to blame a shutdown on migrants. And we're just going to say crime over and over and over again and blame the Democrats for a shutdown, despite the fact that Donald Trump had ordered the Republicans do not have any conversations at all with Democrats, yet alone negotiate with Democrats. Donald Trump canceled a meeting that was supposed to take place at the White House with Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Democratic Senator Leader Chuck Schumer, along with MAGA Mike Johnson, Speaker, and the Republican leader in the Senate, Senator Thune. Trump canceled that meeting. He said, I don't want to meet with Democrats. Well, you need the Democrats in our system in order to negotiate, but Trump doesn't want to do that. Trump wants a shutdown. He wants to bury the Epstein files. One of the reasons he wants a shutdown, I'll do a video on this morning. There's now 218 signatures on that discharge petition, which would force a vote for the release of the Epstein files. And Donald Trump wants to desperately avoid that. So he's ordered MAGA Mike Johnson to not bring Congress back September 29th and 30th, the 2 days before the shutdown's set to take place, because Congresswoman Adelita Gravalha, Arizona 7th Congressional District, just won the special election there. She'll become the 218 signature. The discharge petition would be effective. But in order for her to be sworn in, Congress has to come back. So I think one of the reasons that Trump wants to shut this down and not have work days, the 29th and the 30th, is specifically because he doesn't want that discharge petition signed. All right, I did a whole other video of this, but let me just quickly address Donald Trump's indictment of James Comey, the former FBI director. And I say Donald Trump's indictment because remember, the former Republican federal prosecutor who led the prosecutor's office in the Eastern District of Virginia, somebody who Donald Trump handpicked, lifelong Republican career prosecutor, said there was not enough evidence to prosecute James Comey. He wrote a memo as such saying, we can't prosecute him. We don't have the evidence. And as prosecutors, we have a responsibility not to bring cases where we don't believe beyond a reasonable doubt that we can get a guilty verdict. It goes against our ethics, and we could be disbarred from that. So we're not going to do it. So Trump forces that top federal prosecutor Republican out. His name is Eric Siebert. Bye-bye. Eric Siebert resigns. Trump puts in place someone by the name of Lindsay Halligan. That was Trump's former personal attorney. I think she was in beauty pageants before. She has zero experience as a federal prosecutor, zero experience trying cases. but she's now the federal prosecutor. She's a Trump lackey. She's leading that office now in the Eastern District of Virginia. So she brought the indictment that the career qualified Republican Trump pick said, I'm not bringing this indictment because there's not enough evidence. Now, if you look at this indictment, it's based on one single statement that James Comey made to Congress when he was before the Senate and Ted Cruz was questioning him about whether you, James Comey, authorized somebody in your department, like Andy McCabe or another person, to leak information to the Wall Street Journal about the Steele dossier. Now, Andrew McCabe had previously told the Inspector General's office that he told James Comey about the leak the day after it took place. I think the leak took place on like October 30th was the Wall Street Journal article, is when the leak occurred on October 2016. On October 31st, 2016, McCabe says, I then told Comey after. So Comey was aware, but Comey didn't authorize. The question that Ted Cruz asked Comey was a compound question. It was, were you aware, Comey, and did you authorize the FBI to leak to the Wall Street Journal stuff about the Steele dossier? And Comey said, no, I didn't, because I didn't authorize it. When you look at McCabe's statement was, McCabe told us he did not recall telling Comey prior to the publication of the October 30th article that he intended to authorize or had authorized the special counsel to do it. So there's not like evidence against Comey here. And that's what this whole thing is based on. If you're like, well, what are they even claiming he did? They're claiming that he said that he didn't authorize or he never authorized it. And they're saying that you did authorize it. Also, just think about the difficulty in this case. What does authorize mean? You're the head of the FBI. If someone does something, does that mean you're authorizing something? Like what does authorization mean? What's the intent? It's a horrible case, like just objectively as a lawyer, a bad case. But that's why the Republican former federal prosecutor who got pushed out by Trump rejected it, but Trump wanted it filed. And now he's going to go one by one. Probably Schiff, probably Letitia James, and others are going to be prosecuted. While all of that's going on, you have the Trump cabal out in the new Club Rose Garden, right? They ripped apart the Rose Garden of the people. They turned it into Club Rose Garden, which basically looks like tacky Mar-a-Lago. So the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, says, new date night spot. President's new Rose Garden Club. And then his wife, who's a Fox host, Rachel Campos, Duffy goes, unforgettably beautiful evening at the White House Rose Garden Club cabinet dinner. President Trump DJ'd, playing everything from Jesus Christ Superstar and Sinead O'Connor to Ave Marie. Gold frame photographs of all our presidents now line the walkway, including the auto pen photo. Gold photos, lavish meals, music at Club Rose Garden at the taxpayer expense. As Donald Trump is posting about 90,000 square feet ballrooms, UFC fights taking place in front of the Oval Office as he bails out Argentina, bails out the farmers. Last week in golden carriages in the UK that the American taxpayers are paying for. Trump's family also announced that they were re-releasing a new brand, Trump Vodka, this week. Trump's granddaughter, Kai Trump, announced her new clothing line. I think she's selling these shirts for like $150, and she uses the White House as the location for the photo shoot for her clothing line. But it's great that, I'm being sarcastic, that the Trump family, they're getting billions of dollars from the United Arab Emirates, launching Trump Vodka, launching new meme coins and stable coins and crypto stuff. And the granddaughter is selling t-shirts at the White House. While at the same time, one of the things that the Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought, one of the authors of Project 2025, is basically saying is, if there's a government shutdown, 1.9 or so million more government workers could get laid off. Tens of thousands each day will be fired if there's a government shutdown. Not furlough them, fire them because this Trump regime is cruel for the sake of cruel. Rather than Donald Trump and Russ Vought and J.D. Vance going into a room, meeting with the Democrats, I think all Americans would want to see, hey, can y'all just like have a discussion and act like adults? Well, the Democrats said we'll meet. Now, you may or may not want the Democrats to meet and be like, you know they're going to negotiate in bad faith, these MAGA Republicans, so why have me with them? But the Democrats said, we're willing to meet. Trump says, nope, not meeting. We're not speaking to you. He told the Republicans, don't even talk to them. And I think the American people get it. I mean, Trump is absolutely cratering in the new Quinnipiac poll, as Greg Sargent writes. Trump's overall approval right now is at 38%, 3.8. And then on the economy, 39%. On immigration, which is supposed to be Trump's quote unquote best issue, his approval is only at 41% right there, because you look at the mock-ups of what this ballroom is, 90,000 square feet. That's not what Americans want. Americans want to be able to afford homes. Americans want to be able to afford groceries. Americans don't want to be psychologically tortured living paycheck to paycheck. Americans want healthcare, which is a human right. Americans want education, which is a human right, except in the United States. Americans want normalcy and they don't want this Trump chaos. Donald Trump promised he would make things affordable on day one. He said that. He said he would bring peace to Ukraine in 24 hours, peace in Gaza in 24 hours. Liar, liar, liar. But he's a lifelong fraud. What else do you expect from a lifelong fraud like him? In any event, we'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.